Ash, great to have you on the podcast, Ash. Obviously, I've heard great things about you from a CEO you worked before at Informatica. So thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thank you so much, Kishor. I know we've had a little bit of back and forth in getting at this scheduled, so thank you for having me. I'm truly grateful. And yes, you're talking about Amit Walia, one of the greatest CEOs I've ever worked for. Amazing CEO who's focused on maniacal execution and great vision in the market. And all the
No,
CEOs I've worked for so far, I've learned from them. They've been my mentors. So
no, for sure, Ash. Thank you for doing this. And I'm sure you had a busy month with all the stuff going on in the cyber industry, and we can sort of talk about it at some point of time. But my sort of first question, Ash, to you is interestingly, you've sort of worked at both public companies, but also companies in the private equity route, right? And you would have seen both lenses in terms of how marketing works. Like, just curious to sort of start with what are your learnings working on these different uh, stages of the company with different investor profiles, right? And just want to hear your thoughts on that one.
yeah, Kishore, very astute question. In fact, I'm going to add some more complexity to that question that you just asked me. Yes, I worked at private companies as well as public. In fact, helped take a company public once again, of course, Informatica, and then had some startups and of course private. That's one dichotomy. And then there's another aspect of my background, which is I'm an engineer and
Mm,
also marketer. And the other aspect of it is also that you know that marketing typically CMOs come from either a product marketing background or a demand gen background or just brand and ads, the ad background. I feel you have to have the right mix and a complete mix and appreciation for all the three. So I'll start out somewhere there. I mean, it yes. As when I look back, I feel my entire life was preparing me for my future, and I never understood that right in the beginning. Right when I did my engineering, I didn't know why I was doing this, and I was very outward focused, customer focused. So I naturally gravitated after my business administration, my MBA, into roles that were more customer facing, like for like sales engineering. That was my one of my first jobs. I carried a bag as a salesperson. I grew to appreciate the day in the life of a salesperson, and
mm,
it is tough. Your clock gets reset every quarter. Imagine that, right? Even if you've done a fabulous job in the prior quarter, your clock gets reset again. So that appreciation for a salesperson, a day in the life of a salesperson, how tough it is to sell, especially in B2B high tech. I got an appreciation of that very early in my career. And the second piece of it was my second job as a customer support engineer,
mm.
fielding calls morning, evening, night. Your one was about the frustration of a salesperson. The other one is the frustration of a customer. So those are the two areas where marketing can truly help. And I feel that was preparing me for my future. So that is
Mm.
one aspect of the story. I think you and I were discussing briefly the other day. And then along the way, right? I mean, being in a public company as a head of marketing, that the public company then going private to drive more innovation and getting itself really sharp to go back into the public sphere, helping the company go IPO again, and then getting into a startup, a fully SaaS startup, which was private and growing really well. And then finally now at Trellix, which is, has been is the merger of both McAfee and FireEye, two amazing names in the world of cybersecurity coming together to create this amazing brand called Trellix, a leader in basically one of the best comprehensive cybersecurity platforms out there. So all these things have helped me prepare myself to look at marketing from a very pragmatic lens, right? As
Mm.
I told you before, right? You cannot look at it just from a product marketing lens. You cannot look at it just from a demand gen lens. You cannot look at it just from a brand lens. And you have to balance. Now, here's the great part. All these experiences have helped me balance scale with ROI. Because think about it, you can always have a ton of budget, right? I mean, lucky are the CMOs that have a ton of budget, right? But if you ever get into a private equity kind of a situation, you
Right.
are going to be asked the right question, and I strongly
Mm.
believe in that question. How far is that dollar going? What are you doing with my investment? And you have to be answerable. So that growth mindset itself has been ingrained in me for not just 1 year, it's been for the last, I would say, or 2000, almost 12 years now. Right? So the very first question I answer to my boss is, before you even ask me, here are the metrics, here are the goals of what I'm proposing to do.
Right.
Right? So that gets you off on a respectable ground. You have the right conversations, and you know that you're answerable to the board, you're answerable to metrics and ROI, and that's a fantastic place to be for a CMO.
That's that's great, Ash. That's a thoughtful response based on your background and what you have seen. Appreciate that note. One sort of interesting thought, Ash, I think you mentioned was how the buying journey has changed, right? And you were nice enough to share a couple of slides with me, and I want to show that quickly for the audience members. Uh, can you sort of about this quickly in terms of how this has sort of shaped your view on marketing, especially post-COVID, right?
Absolutely. So first of all, look, pre-COVID, I mean, and things have been changing over the years. It's not just
Right.
post-COVID, but I feel COVID was a catalyst, right? The very fact that we were all staying at home, people were not meeting face to face. I mean, of course, things became more of a hybrid world after that. That's the world we're living in. But the one thing that basically came out to be was, the sales journey is not point A to point B. It's not like I'm going to meet someone, go for an outing at the golf course, sign the deal, done. In certain cases, that could happen, especially where there are deep relationships, etc. Of course. But when that shift happened, right, into a hybrid world, post-COVID world, and more importantly, as you know, the onset of the internet over the many years, and social media and sentiment and all that stuff that's coming from the digital world itself, I think people have become a lot more like you and me, like how you and I shop for things, right? Let me ask you, Kishor, when you are trying to buy something, I mean, I'm in the market to buy a new stereo system, right, for the house. I'm doing a lot of comparative shopping. I'm going to go to vendor sites. I'm doing my own research. I'm doing all that stuff before I even talk to the vendor. When I
Right.
get to the vendor, my mind is almost 80 to 90% done. Right? I've made up my mind. I think that's also percolated into the world of B2B high tech, B2B selling and buying and marketing. I mean, what do you think? I mean, it's no longer just a linear experience.
That's a fair point, Ash. I think um, people seem to be a lot more informed about what they want to buy, but also what the criteria looks like, and them deciding before coming to the call. I'm sure you will know this a lot more than me, but I completely relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, so that single line, it's no longer the same. I think that's the slide that I shared with you. There was another slide I was sharing with you was it's a day and age of digital first marketing, right?
Right.
That's a conversation I want to have with you as well. Like you're in the business of providing digital experiences to your customers. Got it. Now, why? Why is that so important? Because hey, I have a landline right here next to
Mhm.
me. I never pick up that phone, right? So can we boldly actually say something like, cold calling is dead? I think that's going a bit too far, but if you do it in the right way, the right kind of calling with the right information for the right person, for the right target persona, etc., and AI can help with that. We'll talk about that hopefully at some point. But those are the kind of things, right? So cold calling, it's not the same word, right? When you send out content, you have to make sure that it is targeted. You know the persona, you know what the person's pain point is, because frankly, I am a digital native and I'm drowning in information, absolutely drowning in information. I thought I was doing great when I had one junk email address. I now have five
Right.
because I just get such a plethora of things that unless you're trusted or you know me well enough, it's gonna be that needle in a haystack as far as knowing what I want. Right? And it's up to you or myself as a marketer to kind of make sure what the customer is interested in to move the ball.
That's a great point, Ash. Let me also take you to slide 11. And I think it's also a fairly interesting slide, which sounds obvious but tough to execute, right? So would love to hear your thoughts on this also.
Yeah, so this is the one where, I again contrast this with, of course, the customer is making their buying decision well before they talk to a vendor. Got it. It's post-COVID and COVID has been a catalyst. The digital revolution has been a catalyst. But one thing that a lot of marketers forget, and I come across this term, right? Oh, I'm doing field marketing. I'm doing demand gen. So then I ask a challenging question. What do you mean by demand gen?
Mm.
Demand gen needs to be all the above, all the stuff that you see on the left, because the customer can be looking at be approachable through email. The customer can probably be doing a search on Google. A customer may be actually listening to something like what we are doing over here, right? A podcast, a webcast, a webinar, a virtual summit, a in-person event, maybe even going to a in-person kind of a meeting, a
Right.
dinner. So all these things have to be taken into account. I mean, I'm sure when you make a big enterprise investment as a customer into a B2B enterprise technology, etc., and that's my field, so I can talk to it with confidence. It's a long sales cycle, right? First of all, and it also is a lot of dollars that's associated with that. If you really think about that investment, it has to be a very deep conversation and a deep amount of research that happens. And the point I was making earlier, right? I do my research for anything I buy through various means.
For a
Yeah,
for a for a low cost sneaker, right? I mean, imagine somebody's trying
right.
to buy $1 million contract, right? So, right.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I'm also in the market for a sneaker right now, and I'm looking at comparative kind of things. So you know what, the heel is this way, the shoe is this way, it bites this way, or you know what, the grip is not so good, or it gets worn out, or whatever that might be. Where do you get that information? You get it from peer reviews. You get it from the gold stars or whatever that might be on an Amazon.com. So that same kind of thinking has to percolate into the enterprise as well. And that's how that's the mindset. So when I ask a demand gen person, a field marketing person, come with a growth mindset. Give me all these aspects as to where you're going to go and hunt and target your customer. And then come with a prioritized approach, a comprehensive approach of what your demand gen plan is going to be. It's not just about a field event. It's not just about a trade show. It's so much more. And I'm proud. I mean, that's what my team is today. It's a world-class team of marketers and demand gen leaders, etc.
That's awesome, Ash. Ash, now with this context in mind, right? I think we've sort of discussed about how the buying journey has changed, but also it's important to have the right set of digital touch points to influence the buyer decision, and then making sure that the team understands how to orchestrate different programs to sort of get to a final sale. What does a modern campaign approach look like from your perspective? And I think there are a couple of things that we can sort of showcase for the audience. One is we can start at this particular piece.
Yeah, so keep in mind when you talk about demand gen or pipe that marketing creates, this is the pre-pipe that is used to load into the sales world of sales, right? So what is the single most important responsibility from a sales perspective as far as marketing is concerned? To drum up and deliver very, very high quality leads. That word MQL, in my mind, is a bad word. Because what that means is I'm just going to give you what I feel is qualified by marketing. Dear salesperson, I've served it up to you. Now you go do what you need to do. What I've started to do at our company and over the last couple of companies as well is kind of move towards, and again, that's where the nuances of working with a private equity company, where they're looking at everything that you do, right? And you have to justify your ROI. That is what has honed these skills. And I never talk MQLs anymore with a sales leader. I talk about hand raisers. This is such an important piece. I'm actually going to write an article on this very soon. It's the day and age of MQLs are gone. MQLs are dead. Long live hand raisers. But what do I mean by hand raisers? Someone who is actually it's where a customer provides serious intent to do something. Like if I were watching this webcast and I've invested about 45 minutes on this webcast, it means I've invested 45 minutes in this webcast. Nobody has 45 minutes. Nobody has so much free time, which means I've sent a positive signal. If I've not dropped off in just 10 minutes, I've found the content rich and useful. If I'm asking a question, that means I'm even more involved, right? Look at the degrees of involvement over here. If I'm at a trade show or event, right? If I just come by and just I'm there for the charge keys or t-shirt or whatever, that's a different matter. But if I'm going to invest like 30 minutes or 10 minutes on a demo or sit through a session, that raises the score as far as a lead is concerned, right? I'm working myself towards a hand raiser here. If I come and click on a demo and actually experience a demo on your website or a product tour or whatever that might be, again, I'm a hand raiser. I've raised my hand with the intent, explicit intent that I want something. I want some information on it. It's much better than a raw lead that you serve up to your salesperson, right? So if CMOs can start thinking this way and gauge their own performance. I mean, what I actually report to my ELT and my sales team right now is basically the number of hand raisers I create every quarter. That's what I'm doing. So I do have a whole plethora of MQLs and what you call raw leads, etc. But I basically take these serious ones, work them through the sales channels, try to glean enough information. Like, for example, we went with that webcast idea, right? Example, someone is on the webinar. If that person asks a question, and I know you have such a construct, your infrastructure also provides that. If you can pull out the sentiment, if you can pull out more information, you can triangulate who is this person, which industry, make it more richer and serve it back to the sales leader, it becomes a lot more informational and useful to the salespeople. So that's what I mean by creating a campaign structure that actually takes raw leads and makes them more serious. And that's where you see the horizontal funnel on a slide that I'd actually shared with you, right? It's horizontal. It's basically left to right, if I remember it right. You get all the various signals from all the channels that we spoke about earlier on the prior slides, right? Email or paid social search, Google search, everything, right? Webinars, everything. You put them through it, and by the time it gets through the funnel, you should have had a handful of very strong, solid hand raisers that actually can be served back to salespeople. So if you look at it, it's a very logical progression, and I'm alarmed why companies do not take this systematic approach, right? Start with thought leadership, pick a topic that's relevant to the company. Never talk products, talk solutions. Solutions matter to customers. So in our case, right, I mean, it's all about value setting. We are a cybersecurity platform. There are 1,001 things we can do. We pick one, for example, like ransomware detection and response. Right? Makes sense to you if you're the right kind of customer. You are going to come in and you're going to hear from me in the thought leadership kind of a LinkedIn Live or an article or whatever that might be, or a blog. And from there, if I have your attention, I can hold your attention so that you can then come to a webinar. And then you can come to a virtual summit. And then from a virtual summit, you can then probably get to some demos and maybe some deeper dive products that I can speak about. And finally, get you into a room or even virtually on a workshop where I get someone who's a little bit more technical from your company to actually spend 4 hours, 3 hours with me, with my leaders, and basically go through the details as to how my product can actually help. Keep in mind, I never started with product spiel. Right? It was all about the solution, your problem, dear customer. Work yourself back into that, and then finally offer those hand raisers back to sales, whether it's through the website or through demos or whatever, workshops, etc. Hand it back to sales. Now it becomes qualified pipe gem.
So in this framework, in this slide, the hand raisers that get passed to sales is basically after the in-person events, or is it before the in-person events?
It is. So I would not even care about whether it's in person or not in person. Mm-hmm. It basically, you need to actually think about how much time and the quality of time the customer has spent with you. What is the engagement? I would use the term engagement. So if, again, in-person event, right? If that person is coming to a big show or a big event that's been hosted by, say, a third party, you could be one of the 10 vendors or one of the 100 vendors that person's spending time with. So is that person just doing window shopping, or has that person really spent time with you? I think that quality of engagement and the amount of engagement is extremely important. And the number of times you can actually touch. Go back to what we spoke about, right? One touch is not going to be magic for you. You have to hit the customer in various ways. Remind them, keep reminding, go deeper. And then it's also a buying committee that you have got to appeal to, right? It may be a user, but you may need to actually appeal to an influencer, and then finally to the decision maker or the buyer as well. So you have to craft out your campaign in that way. Actually, different kind of content as well. So
yeah. No, this like a lot of times what happens is that marketing teams are asked to do a lot, probably by the top-down CEO or the board, and you just start doing a bunch of activities that are not coherent, right? And this sort of framework just at least helped me think through, hey, what all can you do and what can you do at different stages of the buying journey to actually make them a hand raiser and that can eventually be a sale. So the streamlining piece, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you need to be measuring or inspecting what you expect, right? So every single time, I mean, as we went through that journey, that progression on the funnel, at every point, my team is actually creating metrics or goals for every single thing that happens. Whether it's a webinar or in-person event, or even if it's a demo, I mean, there has to be a stretch goal. You have to know what you're going to be getting to and keep raising the bar on it. So if you don't track what you're expecting, yeah, it's going to be very tough.
That's a great point, Ash. I think the other thing that I was a little surprised when we spoke before was that After you stepped in, and could be because of whatever reasons, but the pipeline and ROI improved quite significantly at
Sure.
Trellix with the cost going down, which is obviously the dream of an investor or a CEO or a board, right? What happened there? Like, what was the primary reason? Is it because of that? Hey, look, I'm going to only look at hand raisers, and that's like the main mantra and KPI that I'm going to follow. Is that like what drove the shift? Because that is not easy to achieve in a short period of time. So just curious to understand what happened exactly there.
It's a great question. So let me answer it this way. I think we started to measure what we expected.
Mm.
Right? Moment you start using data, and that's where data is so very important for a CMO, and that's probably where my engineering background comes in. I've got a
Right.
terrific team that actually does this kind of analysis, and now the entire company, entire marketing organization, regardless of whether they are focused on brand, whether they are focused on anything, whether product marketing, whether they're focused on pure demand gen, we are constantly measuring what we are going to expect, and when we get the results, we're then basically contrasting that with what the goals were. So that was the first thing we started to do. We put in a framework as to what were the goals, etc. And that also helped us from perspective of scoring leads properly. Like for example, everything can't look gray or can't
Right.
look black. You cannot be having a score of 5 for everything. There have got to be different deterministic kind of factors for each thing that they do. For example, if I'm going to take on a demo and spend 15 minutes or 10 minutes watching a demo, that should probably weigh more than reading, say, a blog, right, on something, right? Because I've invested that kind of time and effort, and there's been an explicit signal from me because I've asked for that demo online, etc. So lead scoring, lead routing, and then also
Mm.
enablement, right? So the sales team has been absolutely a great partner as far as we are concerned, helping us, being in cahoots with us, providing the right kind of enablement, picking up from where we leave off, and getting engaged with the customer at the right time. What starts happening is, firstly, as you're measuring what you're expecting, right, then you start getting the right data in, you start having the right expectations, and you start tweaking the engine so that it starts behaving differently. The next thing was to make sure that there was high quality content throughout the journey, for the user, for the influencer, for the buyer, right? And thirdly, what we started to do, and it's not just three, there are many other factors to it, the right kind of lead scoring, lead routing, etc. And soon we started to see those are low-hanging fruit. We started to see the machine shift.
Mm.
So the great business that we are in and that we are doing, Trellix, started to become, at least from a marketing perspective, we started to become more relevant. And there's a lot more work to be done. But that low-hanging fruit was something that we were able to actually capture upfront. Updated the website. Right up front, our old website used to, if I were to share a small little anecdote with you, an old website was really great, but it was focused on our brand, which was the right thing to do at that particular point in time. But after that, we pivoted because we wanted to capture engagement and demand from the website. Don't forget, as like the sales team, even the website is a very strong salesperson for the company. That is a front door for every company, right? So we started to do things where people were not bouncing off at the 25% mark of the website. They were staying on, they were reading further, the storytelling became richer. They were asking for demos, they were interacting, they were asking for product tours, they were using the chat capability, etc. So all these things with measurement started to become a lot more richer. And as we started to provide deeper level of content and thought leadership, etc., it became more meaningful. So keeping the customer upfront and the customer's journey and what the customer wants and how the customer wants to consume it, and then measuring ourselves, I think that was a secret there.
Interesting. And on that note, I think we were discussing. I was asking you, how should companies think about their enterprise go to market, right? Like, hey, how do you even make an enterprise sale? And you had mentioned that, hey, look, it's very important to have attention and awareness at the C-suite or the budget holder. And we spoke about like an interesting campaign you ran recently, right? Where you guys, I think, celebrated the CISOs in a campaign of sorts. Would love to have you talk through it because I think those, to your point, are not flashy Super Bowl ads, but the ROI on that was much, much better than what folks think of. So that'll be a good one to cover, Ash.
Yeah, first of all, I'm not a flashy CMO, so you'll get that from me. But I mean, again, Super Bowl ads, F1, Formula car racing, etc. I'm always going to ask. There's a time and place, and there's a need for everything. I think they offer great brand recognition, But when you are a different kind of a company and when you're looking to grow and align with your customers, etc., I'm not sure your CISO or your CIO is going to buy from you just because you had a specific green car with your logo, etc. I'm not sure. I mean, would I do that? I may not, because I'm a CMO and I buy a lot of MarTech and sales tech. I just don't do that. I look at substance, right? So great work by my team here coming up with a campaign called Mind of the CISO. Right there, please recognize what we are trying to say. We are talking about the customer first. It's not us, it's the customer. We are talking about how the mind of the CISO works. We started a whole campaign around it. We first started off with twice a year done kind of a survey to over 40,000, 50,000 CISOs that are out there in the world, and those that could take the survey, come back with results and share that with the network or the community of CISOs that's out there, whoever wants to read it, not just CISOs, the state of cybersecurity, the state of AI and cybersecurity, the state of, maybe in the wake of what's just happened, the global tech outage that just happened, right? Those kind of topics that are really, really relevant to CISOs. We first created great content for engaging in a trusted way with CISOs, so earning their trust. And then from there, we created a whole program where we worked with a third party to create CISO awards, which is fantastic. We've got over 400, 500 nominations across the world, across industries. And we celebrated 100 of them on the NASDAQ tower. So, that was our way to say thank you. We are grateful. And frankly, it was celebrating the great work that CISOs do. I mean, think about it. They are vigilant every single day as far as all the threats that are coming to a company, right? And they've got to look at things like coming at them from every direction, 24/7. It's a thankless job.
Yeah.
And celebrating them, that is what we love doing, right? So doing that, we started gaining respect and trust from the CISOs, and we started to make a foray into more of these enterprise accounts where they actually have more of a buying power or decision-making power. So that's how you do it in an elegant way. It can never be done from a perspective of, I want something from you. To get, you must give. Right. That's the core principle of marketing. So I think, that's how I would probably explain.
That's awesome, Ash. I don't know if I've seen that, but I've seen you sort of engage with some posts where CISOs have shared their wins on LinkedIn, right? For example, I think the CISO of Walmart or someone shared it on their LinkedIn about the wins that you guys showcased, which was pretty cool, right? I mean, I don't know if that's a great way to actually obviously celebrate him, but also just get awareness for the brand, right? As to just who Trellix is, right? If they have not heard of Trellix,
which is secondary, right? I mean, awareness for the brand. We will rise as our customers rise, and that's why I would feel that I would probably invest my time more on something like that, right, versus on an F1 car or whatever that is. So just my 2 cents.
Right. Awesome, Ash. I think one other thing that I wanted to pick your thoughts on was just in general. Like the evolution of AI in general, right? I mean, like there is obviously early use cases coming along in like content creation, content marketing, right? I don't know if your team has tried out some tools. Have you seen some efficiency improve, or it's still early phase? We're all learning, and I don't have concrete examples. Like, what is your sort of overall sentiment there?
Yeah, I'm just looking at a spreadsheet that I have right now in front of me. This is an ongoing sheet of over 50 tools that I've been using. That my team has been using, Kishor. We are at different stages of piloting, of looking at, considering, working with, or basically extending. And they are today every single MarTech tool. I mean, there are thousands of them out there. And when I say MarTech, it's MarTech and sales tech. Both of these go hand in hand, and they have to be spoken about together, right? There are tons of them. You just have to make sure you're using the right tool for the right job. Now, you mentioned AI, right? I am a strong believer about one thing. Use a capability, use a technology for what it is meant to do. Right? AI is great. I mean, we have a huge heritage of AI, right? I mean, it's not just AI, it's machine learning, it's artificial intelligence. Gen AI has just come off late, and also the foundation of threat intelligence that we provide as a cybersecurity company. Right? It is a means to an end. It's a road. It's a way that makes a customer's life, right, a little bit easier, right, with some automation. But if you depend on it as the be all end all in MarTech, especially, so remember the example we spoke about right up front. If a machine was to send me an email, I would know for a fact, Kishore, that it is not coming from Kishore from Goldcast, who's a co-founder of Goldcast, but from a machine that's impersonating Kishore.
Right.
The emotion, the emotive content of that is lost, right? That personal connection is lost. So know when to use it. Maybe you do have a manual requirement of creating X amount of content. Get it to 80% there, 60% there, 50% there, whatever it might be. The more personalization is needed, the less you need to actually use more of a machine kind of a centric approach, right? So I'll leave that with you for a second. You absolutely want to use AI in places where you want to get more sentiment analysis, right? You want to understand more about intent. How do you want to personalize something? Who's your target customers, right? Or gleaning information from various tools that are coming together. Maybe there's something that kind of maps into Salesforce, and there's something that maps into Marketo, and never the twain shall meet, or they don't talk to each other. But if you can glean some intent signals from this particular system and correlate it with the other, you instantly have a better approach to actually target the right people, and again with the intent to provide them the right engagement with the right content at the right time and meeting them where they need to be.
Yeah. That's the holy grail, Ash. I've seen some big tech companies already coming up with some advancements there in terms of, hey, how do you obviously orchestrate the buying journey, but also surface content at the right time just to influence them, right, and personalize their experience. Seems interesting, right? I think we will see how it goes, but that's exciting though.
Right? That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Actually, there is one sort of. I remember actually reading this article before I actually reached out to you. I think one of the articles you wrote was the piece about 5 operational habits of a great CMO, right? 5 winning habits of an operational CMO, right? I just think would love to sort of have you walk through some of those things that you mentioned. I think it'll also be helpful for folks who are listening who want to become CMO someday.
Oh, you're testing my memory, right? So I'll try to remember those 5, because those 5 are, I mean, for the most part, they are the 5 that I believe in. They are the concrete fundamental guiding principles on how I've built my CMO strategy and my career so far. I think it starts with the data. The very first one I believe in my article that I talk about is you have to master your data. That helps you master your craft. And it's no longer, it's not about geeking out on your data. You have to inspect what you expect. You have to have the metrics in place, everything that we just spoke about, regardless of whether it's a thought leadership campaign, a brand campaign, a comms campaign, a demand gen campaign, a product marketing campaign, whatever that might be, right? You have to ask those deeper questions and keep going till that next question. Why? What? Why is this happening? That it just keeps answering the answers built out, which are so beautiful. It helps you build your strategy, right? So that's one. In fact, I would probably have started with number 2 as first. You have to invest in building, nurturing a very, very strong team. And here's where, I'm a firm believer in this. You tell me, Kishore, how many roles do you believe a CMO actually, their CMO role is rolled into? It's one role, but there are multiple roles rolled into one.
Right, product marketing, demand, customer marketing, brand.
You can go on and on, right?
Right.
Exactly. Now think about it. Contrast that with a CEO. I think in addition to the CEO's job in a company, the CMO's job is equally complex, if not more. Because the CEO himself or herself also has to be pretty good at understanding what's going on in the world of finance, the world of sales, in the world of marketing. Take, for example, if a CMO quits, who steps in? The CEO quits and steps in for a little bit. So that CEO has to know a little bit enough, not a little bit, enough about enough. Let me just put it that way, right? Be smart enough about marketing, for example. So similarly, in the world of the CMO, I can't be a master of everything, which is why having great people, surrounding yourself with great people who actually have contrasting views, who have making it a safe place for people to actually share their views and opinions. And then, of course, you take your decision based on all the inputs that you get. But having that kind of environment is absolutely key, right? So I call it the office of the CMO. And for me, the office of the CMO is not just my directs, it is beyond my directs. Right? So that is number 2. Number 3 is, of course, we've talked about it, understand the buyer's journey, cater to meet them why, where, and when they need to be met, right? With the right kind of content, with the right kind of engagement, etc. It's a modern world, it's a digital world. They make their decisions far earlier than they even talk to a vendor. That's number three. Number five is kind of related to number three, I would say, is, it is a digital first world. So take more of a digital first approach, but it's not the only approach, because it's also a hybrid world. I'm doing things in person, I'm also doing things digitally, but I think it's switching to becoming more of a digital world for matters of convenience, right? People can do more online than they can do in person. So
100%. On that point, at least when I speak to CMOs, the number of people who are rethinking their trade show budget, right? Because obviously, you know how expensive these booths are, right? And if you sort of decide to splurge money, you can go endless number of conferences and not get the most out of it. So just balancing the right approach seems a lot more important, especially now, to your earlier point.
That's absolutely right. And last but not the least is basically alignment. You have to, as a CMO, you have to invest in, basically left and right. Your head of sales, head of products, head of finance. I spend a lot of time with financial leaders as well, because at least maybe it is my background, because I've done my business management, I've done my engineering, etc. And I've spent enough time in private equity, public, all that stuff. So I've got a little bit more of a rounded experience. I can go toe to toe and at least understand the nuances of the business and business strategy, right? And of course, the CEO. So the more you invest in those relationships and align with who's on the left and who's on the right, the deeper is the sustenance and the success of your marketing strategy. And I always remember one thing: everyone in a company is a marketer.
Right.
Everyone in a company is a salesperson. So I have no qualms about ideas coming from anyone outside marketing, right? We are all marketers, and I welcome those kind of ideas.
That's great, Ash. I don't know if my team likes me giving them ideas all the time because I think I'm a marketer, but that's affirming. That's reaffirming, though, that everybody is a marketer, which is just a good point. Last question, Ash. But I'm sure you've worked with a lot of CMOs in general early on in your career, right? And you would have seen your peers who sort of have great qualities of these five that you mentioned about. Any ones that you sort of remember and sort of want to highlight from your experience working with them? Any mentors that you sort of learned a lot from? Would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. I mean, many come to mind for different reasons. And again, you're asking me this. I don't want to do a disservice to people who I don't, but I'll at least.
You said one of the best CEOs that you worked with, obviously Trellix CEO, but also the Informatica CEO, right?
Let's talk about them, and let's talk about what I learned, right? Because all of them are geniuses and great at what they do. So from my head of Informatica, Amit Walia, CEO from Informatica. I mean, he amazing strategist, great visionary, able to actually pivot the company from being a public then private and making it completely SaaS first, cloud first, and hence we IPO'd. I think one of his strongest points was, though his strategy was A+, his execution was A++.
Wow.
Right? So having that eye on maniacal, he used to use the term maniacal execution. So I learned that from him, and I keep saying that to my team, and my team wonders, well, what does that even mean? And then I've got to go ahead and explain. So maniacal execution along with very solid strategy, that's one. Jaspreet Singh from Dhruva, excellent CMO from a CEO. From him, I said CMO because I think he is as good a CMO as he's a CEO. Wow. From him, I learned the art of actually the need to know your data inside out, to truly inspect what you expect, especially in startups. I mean, they are a cloud. Dhruva is a SaaS cloud first kind of a company, and just knowing your metrics at the tip of your fingertips, right? That's huge, right? So being totally immersed in your data. And from Brian Palmer, I mean, fantastic CEO that I work for right now. Basically, being a master of your business, not just about marketing. I think that's really what he's taught me. That you need to know all the aspects of the business, right, be involved in the strategy of the business versus just be a marketer for marketer's sake. So giving me that opportunity to speak, the platform to speak and provide input, etc. That goes a long way and shows a lot of faith in where marketing has actually come.
Exactly. Ash, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for obviously letting me use your slides that you prepared for a different event, but also sharing your thoughts transparently. I think the fact that you sort of insisted up multiple times about data and the ROI of measuring marketing is easy to say, but tough to sort of really, make sense, make sure that your team is bought into that whole philosophy is pretty commendable. So thank you for coming to the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Kishore, and I'd love to, have a conversation, say in a couple, maybe a year or two when I learn more. But it's always a learning journey. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Ash.